All right, let's cut the crap and dive right into this F1 money bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about how these speed demons are raking in the dough.
Absolutely.
And trust me, it's going to piss you off when you hear how much these asshats are making.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Ready for this?
Let's do it. It's fascinating to see how Formula One drivers' salaries have become this crazy reflection of the sport's growth.
Yeah, and Forbes just dropped their list of the highest paid drivers for 2024. Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting.
It is mind-blowing to see how much these numbers have jumped compared to even just a few years ago.
Okay, first up, the reigning champ, Max Verstappen. Another dominant year.
For sure.
But this time it wasn't a complete cakewalk. Still, the guy's laughing all the way to the bank.
What's wild is that even with a tighter championship battle, he's actually widened the gap between his earnings and his rivals.
Are you kidding me? So
Oh.
even with more competition, he's making even more money.
That's right. Verstappen pulled in a cool $75 million this year.
Damn.
$60 million of that is his base salary. The rest is from bonuses.
$60 million just for showing up?
Pretty much.
Fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And that puts him a whopping $18 million ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Talk about a pay gap.
It really highlights how an F1 performance directly translates to how much you earn. The higher you finish, the bigger your paycheck.
Okay, next up we've got Lando Norris. This dude is making serious waves both on the track and in his bank account.
He's a perfect example of how a new contract combined with killer performance bonuses can catapult you up the earnings ladder.
This guy jumped from 6th to 3rd in earnings in just 1 year. That new contract is sweet, but those bonuses are where it's at.
It's amazing how lucrative those top spots on the podium can be. And Norris is proving that young talent can cash in big time.
So we've got Verstappen at the top, Norris climbing the ladder. But what's fueling this crazy driver pay explosion? Is it just because these guys are ridiculously talented and risk their asses every race?
It's more than just raw talent and risk-taking. The entire sport is booming right now.
Okay.
Bigger audiences, more sponsors, teams worth billions. All that cash trickles down to the drivers.
So basically, Formula One is a giant money-printing machine, and these guys are reaping the rewards. Not a bad gig if you can get it.
Not bad at all.
But what about the cost cap? Wasn't that supposed to level the playing field?
The cost cap is interesting because it limits how much teams can spend on developing their cars, but it doesn't include driver salaries.
Well, are you kidding me? So it's like a loophole that lets the rich teams throw even more money at their drivers.
Exactly. While they can't spend as much on the cars themselves, they can go all out to throw the best drivers.
That's so fucked up. It's like giving the rich kids an even bigger advantage.
I know, right?
But hey, I guess if you're a top driver, you're not complaining.
And speaking of top drivers, we can't forget about Lewis Hamilton. Remember that bombshell earlier this year?
Oh yeah, the Ferrari move? Didn't that piss off a few people? I mean,
Yeah.
the guy ditches Mercedes after all those years, and now he's set to become the highest paid driver in F1 history. Are you kidding me?
It shook the entire F1 world, but it also makes sense when you consider the bigger picture. Hamilton's betting on Ferrari's resurgence, and they're clearly willing to pay a king's ransom to have him lead the charge.
Talk about a power move. Okay, so we've got Verstappen raking it in, Norris climbing the ranks, and Hamilton making history with his Ferrari deal. This is some serious F1 drama. We'll dive into some more of these insane salaries after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back. So before we went on that little tangent about Hamilton's Ferrari shocker, we were talking about how these F1 drivers are basically swimming in cash these days.
Yeah, and it's not just individual drivers. It's like the whole damn sport is experiencing this insane growth spurt.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you look at the numbers. Forbes says the top 10 highest-paid F1 drivers this year pulled in a combined total of $317 million.
Are you kidding me? That's a 23% jump from last year. Where the hell is all this money coming from?
It boils down to two major factors. First, Formula One has become this global phenomenon. Bigger audiences mean more sponsors, more lucrative TV deals, teams worth billions. It's a money-making machine.
So more money for the sport translates to more money for the drivers. Makes sense. What's the second factor?
The second factor is that pesky cost cap we talked about earlier. Remember, it limits spending on car development, but not driver salaries.
Yeah, that fucked up loophole that lets the big teams throw even more cash at their star drivers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So while teams can't just spend unlimited amounts on building the fastest car, they can still go all out to snag the best drivers.
That's a messed up system. But hey, if I was a top driver, I wouldn't be complaining either.
Speaking of top drivers, you mentioned some other big moves and contract extensions happening.
Oh yeah, there's been a ton of activity lately. Charles Leclerc just signed a new deal with Ferrari, and rumor has it he's getting a massive raise for 2025.
So even more money for Ferrari's drivers. Looks like they're really going all in on trying to reclaim their glory days.
They are. And it's not just Leclerc. Several other drivers have also cashed in with new contracts and extensions. The competition for top talent is fierce, and teams are willing to pay big bucks to get the drivers they want. So what does all this mean for the sport in the long run? Is it good that these drivers are getting paid insane amounts of money? Or is it just going to create even more inequality between the teams?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a complex issue with no easy answers. On one hand, these huge salaries reward the most talented drivers and incentivize them to perform at their absolute best. But on the other hand, it could definitely widen the gap between the top teams and the rest of the field.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword. More money means more excitement and higher stakes, but it also could make it even harder for smaller teams to catch up.
Right. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the next few years. Will the FIA eventually adjust the cost cap to include driver pay, or will we see an even bigger divide between the haves and have-nots?
Okay, so we've covered the top earners, the crazy growth of the sport, and the whole cost cap drama.
Oh.
What about the rest of the Forbes list? Who else is raking in the big bucks besides the guys we've already talked about?
Well, further down the list, you've got some familiar names like Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez.
Those guys are still pulling in serious cash, even though they're not at the very top anymore.
Exactly. Experience and a proven track record still count for a lot in F1. And then you've got some rising stars like Jordan Russell and Esteban Ocon, who are starting to make their mark both on the track and in their bank accounts.
It's fascinating to see how these guys' salaries directly reflect their performance and where they stand in the sport's hierarchy.
It really is. And it highlights that Formula One is more than just a sport. It's a high-stakes business where money and talent are intertwined.
So the next time you see one of these guys flying around the track at 200 miles per hour, remember they're not just athletes. They're rock stars with fat wallets.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
And as F1 keeps growing, those wallets are only going to get fatter.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap this whole thing up, I want to get your take on something. We've talked about how this flood of money is impacting the drivers and the teams, but what about the fans? How is all this affecting them,
That's a crucial question. It's a delicate balance that F1 has to maintain.
right? More money means more investment in the sport. Better cars, more races, bigger and more spectacular events. But could it also alienate some fans who feel like it's all become too commercialized and lost its soul?
That's the tightrope F1 has to walk. How to keep the sport exciting and accessible to its core fan base while also capitalizing on its growing popularity and attracting new fans.
I get it. It's like they need to find a way to hold on to the heart and soul of F1 while still embracing the big bucks rolling in. Not an easy task.
Not at all. But one thing's for sure, Formula One is at a crossroads right now. The decisions made in the next few years will have a huge impact on the sport's future.
That's some heavy stuff to think about. We've covered a lot of ground today, from Verstappen's massive paycheck to Hamilton's shocking Ferrari move to the bigger picture of F1's financial boom.
It's been a wild ride through the world of F1 finances, and it's clear that the sport is at a pivotal moment in its history.
Absolutely. But before we sign off, I got to ask you, what's the craziest thing you learned from all this Forbes data? What really blew your mind?
Honestly, it's the sheer scale of the money involved. I mean,
Yeah.
we knew F1 was big business, but these numbers are astronomical.
I hear you. It's mind-boggling to think about how much these guys are earning, and it's only going to go up from here.
Exactly. The future of F1 is bright, but it's also going to be expensive.
All right, folks, there you have it, a deep dive into the wild world of F1 driver salaries. We've explored the crazy salaries, the cost cap conundrum, and what it all means for the future of this crazy sport.
We've seen how money is shaping the sport both on and off the track.
And hopefully you've learned a thing or two about how these speed demons are making bank. But here's the final thought I want to leave you with.
Oh, you're going to jump in and steal my thunder.
Damn right.
Mm.
We talked about the drivers, the teams, and the fans, but what about the ethics of all this? Is there a point where the money becomes too much? Where the pursuit of profit overshadows the sport itself? That's something for everyone to chew on.
That's a fantastic point to end on. It's a conversation we need to be having as F1 continues to grow and evolve.
All right, so we've spent a good chunk of time talking about these insane F1 salaries,
Yeah.
the cost cap shenanigans,
Mm-hmm.
and how the whole sport is swimming in cash.
A lot, right?
But let's try to bring it back down to earth for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, let's cut the crap about billionaires for a second and think about us regular folks.
Right. What does all this mean for you?
Yeah,
The average F1 fan sitting at home watching these guys race.
besides being pissed off that we're not the ones getting paid millions to drive those badass cars.
Well, besides that, I think it's important to remember that F1 is more than just a sport.
Yeah.
It's this crazy global spectacle, a high-stakes business, and a showcase for cutting-edge technology.
So basically, it's this giant money-making machine that we're all glued to, right?
In a way, yeah. But it's also a testament to human ingenuity, athletic skill, and the pure thrill of competition.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But let's be real, the money is a huge part of what makes it so damn entertaining.
Oh, for sure.
It's like watching a real-life soap opera, where the stakes are unbelievably high.
There's definitely that lifestyles of the rich and famous element to it, but it also adds another layer of intensity to the competition.
Yeah.
These drivers are fighting for every inch on the track, knowing that millions of dollars are on the line.
So next time we're watching a race, we shouldn't just think of it as cars going around in circles.
Exactly. It's a complex battle of skill, strategy, technology, and yes, even money.
Yeah.
Understanding how all those elements intertwine can make the whole experience even more exciting.
All right, so we've gone from Verstappen's crazy salary to the cost cap bullshit to the philosophical implications of F1's financial boom. What's the main takeaway here?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Formula One is in this crazy period of growth and change. The amount of money pouring into the sport is transforming everything from driver salaries to the way teams operate to the very nature of the competition itself.
And it doesn't seem like it's slowing down anytime soon, right?
Not at all. In fact, I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
Oh.
As F1 continues to expand globally, attract new fans, and push the boundaries of technology, the money will just keep flowing in.
So the drivers will keep getting richer, the teams will keep spending more, and we'll all keep tuning in for the spectacle.
It's a wild ride, and it's only going to get wilder.
All right, folks, that's it for our deep dive into the world of F1 money. We've explored the insane salaries, the cost cap controversy, and what it all means for the future of the sport.
We've seen how money is shaping the sport both on and off the track.
And hopefully you've learned a thing or two about how these speed demons are making bank.
Hmm?
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Go for it.
We've talked about the drivers, the teams, the fans, but what about the ethics of all this? Is there a point where the money becomes too much? Where the pursuit of profit overshadows the sport itself? That's something for you to think about.
That's a great point to ponder. It's a conversation we need to have as F1 continues to evolve.
All right, that's it for this deep dive. See you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting this channel by hitting the subscribe and like buttons. This will help the channel grow and expand on the journey we have begun together here at AI Meets You.